My grandfather dies with a fortune worth $75 million. Everyone assumes his son will inherit. But secretly, he wrote a will giving everything to his grandson, the only one who truly cared for him. For years, while others circled the old man like vultures, Kevin sat with him at the bedside. He read to him when the nights were long, walked him through the gardens when his legs were weak, listened to his stories when the family was too busy, chasing business dinners and champagne. The bond between them was unshakable. Robert Hale might have been a titan of wealth to the world, but to Kevin he was simply Grandpa. And to Robert, Kevin was the only soul who saw him as more than money. So in secret, Robert rewrote everything. The estates, the companies, the accounts, the houses stretching across cities, the empires, all signed, stamped, and sealed in a document with one name carved into its destiny. But destiny doesn't protect paper from fire. The funeral is heavy with silence. Black cars line the Hale mansion like soldiers. Chandeliers glow, but no light reaches Kevin's chest. He stands apart from the crowd, watching men in suits whisper in corners, their eyes sliding past him to where Victor Hale, his father, commands the room with handshakes and false grief. Everyone already treats Victor as the new king. They don't know the truth. They don't know the promise Robert left behind. Only Kevin does, because just days before his death, Robert squeezed his hand and whispered, "Don't let them steal it from you. It's yours, Kevin, all of it." Kevin clings to that memory while the coffin is lowered, earth swallowing the man who gave him hope. That night, alone in his room, the storm begins. A knock at the door. Soft, urgent. The maid enters, face pale, hands shaking. She holds out a leather envelope sealed with the Hale crest. Her whisper trembles. "Your grandfather told me. Give this only to you." Kevin's chest pounds as he tears it open. The papers spill across his desk. Line after line, signature after signature. The fortune, the empire, the inheritance, everything left to him. His breath catches. His grandfather kept his word. This was it, proof. But the door bursts open. Victor, his eyes sweep the desk, land on the will and freeze. For a heartbeat, shock, then fury, then a smile that curdles Kevin's blood. "So," Victor mutters, lifting the papers, "the old man really did it." He laughs, sharp, bitter. 75 million to a boy who hasn't earned a dime. Kevin lunges. "That's mine." Victor's hand whips across Kevin's face, sending him sprawling. He holds the will over the candle flame. Fire licks the edges, spreading fast. "No!" Kevin scrambles, but Victor's boot slams into his chest, pinning him down. The flames chew through Robert's signature, through Kevin's name, through every promise made. Ash rains onto the carpet. The will is gone. Victor leans close, voice low, deadly. "You have nothing now, nothing." Kevin crawled behind a stack of crates, rain stinging his face, folder pressed to his chest. His breath came ragged, every instinct screaming to run. But the folder, the truth, was heavy in his grip, anchoring him in place. If he fled, it was over. His grandfather's name erased forever. A hand grabbed his arm. The stranger, blood streaking his coat, pulled him up with iron force. "Move!" They sprinted down the pier, bullets chasing their heels, wood shattering under the rain of lead. The folder nearly slipped from Kevin's hands, but he clutched it tighter, every step heavier, the storm itself pressing against him. Behind them, Victor's voice thundered. "Run, boy! Run as far as you like. There's nowhere you can hide from me." The stranger shoved Kevin toward the end of the pier. A boat bobbed against the dock, rope half loosened. Barely lit, he cut the line with a single slash of his knife and leapt in, dragging Kevin after him. Engines roared. The boat surged forward just as Victor's men reached the edge of the pier, weapons blazing. Bullets tore through the air, striking water in violent splashes. Kevin fell flat against the deck, folder pinned beneath him, waves slamming the boat as it sped into the storm. Victor stood on the dock, rain dripping from his umbrella, watching the boat vanish into darkness. His smile returned, colder than the night. "You can't outrun blood," he whispered. Hours later, far from the city lights, the boat cut into a desolate cove. The stranger killed the engine, silence swallowing the chaos that trailed behind them. Kevin staggered to his feet, chest burning, hair plastered to his forehead. He clutched the folder, still intact, though its edges were soaked and torn. He finally found his voice. "Who are you?" The scarred man looked out across the black waves, jaw set hard. "A man who owed your grandfather more than I could repay. Robert saved me once. Now I'll save you." Kevin's hands shook. "My father, he won't stop. He'll kill us both." The stranger turned, eyes sharp as lightning. "Then we stop him first." From his coat he pulled another envelope, sealed and marked with Robert's insignia. He pressed it into Kevin's palm. "This is only part of what your father tried to destroy. Tomorrow you'll learn the rest. But for now, you need to understand, this isn't just about money. It's about power. And power, Kevin, never forgives weakness." Kevin stared at the seal, his chest tightening. The weight of destiny pressed harder than ever. He had the folder. He had proof. He had an ally. But he also had an enemy who would burn the world to keep what he stole. Thunder rolled across the horizon, lightning splitting the sky. Kevin gripped the envelope, resolve burning behind his fear. "Then we burn him back." The stranger nodded once, approval flickering in his scarred face. But before the silence could settle, a distant sound cut across the cove, another engine. A light swept the waves, drawing closer, brighter. Victor's reach had already found them. The cove glows with the glare of an approaching boat. Kevin clutches the sealed envelope, the folder still wet with proof of betrayal, as Victor's forces close in again. The storm isn't over. It's only beginning. The roar of an engine tore through the night. Kevin's grip tightened around the sealed envelope, knuckles white against the wet paper. The stranger's head snapped toward the sound, his body tensing. A spotlight cut across the waves, slicing the cove in a blinding arc. Another boat, sleek, black, built for speed. Victor's men were closing in. The stranger moved fast, pulling Kevin down behind the rocks that jutted from the shoreline. The folder dug into Kevin's chest as he crouched, waves crashing only feet away. His pulse hammered so violently it drowned out the thunder. "They shouldn't have found us this fast," the stranger muttered, eyes scanning the horizon. "He must have trackers everywhere." The spotlight swept past again, closer this time, the beam brushing over the water where their boat floated, abandoned and rocking gently. The engines growled, circling, hunters sniffing for prey. Kevin pressed the envelope against his chest, words barely escaping his lips. "What do we do?" The stranger didn't answer immediately. He pulled a pistol from his coat, checked the chamber, then looked at Kevin with eyes carved from stone. "We don't hide. We survive." Gunfire split the night, bullets ricocheting off rocks as the spotlight locked onto their position. Kevin dropped flat, ears ringing, salt and gunpowder mixing in the air. The stranger returned fire, every shot deliberate, every squeeze of the trigger a statement. They wouldn't be taken quietly. The boat veered closer, its hull crashing against the waves, armed men shouting orders. Kevin's throat tightened as shadows swarmed the deck, rifles raised, all aimed at him. "Run!" the stranger barked. Kevin stumbled to his feet, sprinting across the jagged shoreline. His shoes slipped on wet stone, his breath tearing through his lungs. The folder and envelope clutched desperately. Behind him, the stranger's gun thundered, but the onslaught was too great. A scream cut through the storm, not Kevin's. The stranger staggered, a bullet tearing through his shoulder. He dropped to one knee, blood mixing with rain. still firing even as his strength faltered. Kevin skidded to a halt, torn between flight and loyalty. His legs screamed to keep moving, but something stronger rooted him in place. He turned back. Through the storm of bullets, the stranger met his eyes. "Go!" Kevin froze, heart splitting. Leave him and maybe survive. Stay and risk everything. The folder weighed heavy in his arms. Proof of his inheritance. The truth his grandfather left him. But the man who had just bled for him was collapsing under fire. He couldn't move. The black boat rammed against the rocks. Soldiers leaping onto the shore like wolves. Guns drawn, voices sharp in the rain. Kevin backed away, breath shallow, clutching the envelope as though it might shield him. The stranger fired one last time, then his gun clicked empty. A soldier slammed him against the rocks, rifle to his throat. Kevin's body moved before his mind caught up. He hurled a stone into the floodlight, glass shattering, the cove plunging into fractured darkness. Chaos erupted. Shouts, confusion, men firing blindly into the storm. In the cover of shadow, Kevin dragged the wounded stranger up. Adrenaline overriding fear. "You're not dying here," he hissed, teeth clenched. They stumbled into the trees beyond the cove, bullets snapping branches inches behind them. Every step was agony, every breath a battle. Kevin's arms burned as he supported the stranger's weight, the folder digging into his ribs like a reminder of why they couldn't stop. Branches whipped his face, mud sucking at his shoes, the storm swallowing their tracks. Still, the voices pursued. Victor's men crashing through the forest, relentless, merciless. The stranger's blood soaked into Kevin's jacket, warm and heavy. His breathing was ragged, but his grip on Kevin's shoulder was iron. "You don't. Let go of that folder," he gasped. "Not for me. Not for anyone." Kevin's chest ached, but he held tighter. "We're both getting out, alive." The forest seemed endless, the storm unending. But finally, in the distance, a faint glow, an abandoned cabin, its windows flickering with the dim light of a forgotten lantern. Kevin pushed forward, dragging the stranger inside, slamming the door shut against the storm. The cabin smelled of dust and rot, the roof leaking in steady drips. But for now it was shelter. He dropped the folder onto the table, his hands trembling, chest heaving. The stranger collapsed onto a chair, face pale, blood soaking through his coat. Kevin ripped cloth from a curtain, pressing it against the wound, panic clawing at his chest. "Stay with me." The stranger's eyes flickered open, pain etched deep. His hand trembled as it reached for Kevin's pocket. "The envelope, open it." Kevin froze, breath catching. Slowly he pulled it out, breaking the seal. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, brittle with age but untouched by flame. His grandfather's handwriting. "If you are reading this, the will has been betrayed. But know this, the truth lies deeper. Not in the papers, but in the bloodline. Protect it, Kevin. It is more than money. It is the empire itself." Kevin's chest tightened, the words searing into his soul. The will was more than inheritance. It was power carved into legacy. His blood, not Victor's greed, was the key. Before he could read further, the cabin windows shattered. Glass sprayed across the floor. A voice cut through the storm, cruel and familiar. "End of the line, son." Victor's men stormed inside. Kevin clutches the parchment, the stranger bleeding beside him. As Victor's forces flood the cabin, his father's shadow stretches over him once more, this time closer than ever. The cabin door crashed inward, wood splintering as Victor's men poured in like a flood. Muzzles flashed, thunder mixing with the hiss of rain. Kevin dove to the floor, parchment clutched against his chest, glass crunching beneath him as bullets chewed into the walls. The wounded stranger roared through clenched teeth, ripping the empty pistol from his holster and swinging it like a club. The first soldier dropped with a broken jaw, the second with a smashed temple, but three more surged forward, rifles raised. Kevin's body moved on instinct. He snatched a rusted poker from the fireplace and swung wildly. The iron cracked against a soldier's arm, the gun clattering to the floor. He seized it, hands trembling but firm, and fired. The shot echoed like thunder in the confined space. One man fell. For a moment, silence. Smoke curled in the air. Then Victor stepped through the shattered doorway. His umbrella gone, rain dripping from his tailored suit. He clapped slowly, a mockery that chilled Kevin's blood. "My son," he drawled, voice calm amidst chaos. Finally showing some fire. "Robert would be proud." The stranger staggered to his feet, blood trailing down his arm, eyes blazing. "Your father would spit on you, Victor." Victor's smile sharpened. "And yet here I stand, with everything he built." He lifted a hand. His men raised their rifles in unison, barrels aimed at Kevin and the stranger. Kevin's breath came ragged, his finger tightening on the trigger of the stolen gun. He had no chance against them all, not like this. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Victor's gaze settled on the parchment in Kevin's hand. His smile faded. "Give it to me." Kevin's grip tightened until his knuckles turned white. His grandfather's words burned in his skull, not in the papers, but in the bloodline. The parchment wasn't just proof, it was a map. A secret may be the key to dismantling Victor's empire. If he let it go, everything was lost. The stranger's voice cut through the standoff, hoarse but defiant. "Kevin, don't." Victor's eyes narrowed, fury flashing for the first time. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "You think you can stand against me? You are nothing without me. A boy clinging to scraps. Hand it over, or I'll bury you where you stand." Kevin's chest heaved, his heart pounding so hard it blurred his vision. He could hear the storm outside, the creak of the cabin under the weight of rain, the shallow rasp of the stranger's breath beside him. And then something inside him broke. "No," Kevin said, voice raw but steady. The single word hung in the air like lightning. Victor's face darkened, rage boiling to the surface. His hand shot out, signaling his men. Rifles lifted, triggers half squeezed. The stranger lunged first, tackling the nearest soldier. The cabin exploded into chaos, gunfire, shouts, the crash of furniture splintering. Kevin dove behind the table, firing blindly, the recoil rattling his arms. Men fell, but more pressed in. The walls shuddered, lantern light flickered, shadows twisted like demons. A soldier seized Kevin by the collar, slamming him against the wall. Stars burst across his vision, the parchment nearly slipping from his grip. Instinct screamed. He jammed the pistol against the man's chest and pulled the trigger. The blast was deafening. The soldier collapsed, blood pooling across the floorboards. Kevin gasped, trembling, staring at the body. His first kill, no time to process. Another rifle swung toward him. Then the stranger tackled the man, knife flashing, the blade finding its mark. The cabin reeked of smoke and iron. Bodies littered the floor. And then silence again. Victor stood untouched in the doorway, watching the carnage with cold disdain. His men lay broken, the storm howling behind him. But his eyes burned only for the parchment in Kevin's hand. "You think this ends here?" His voice was calm, venomous. "This is the beginning of your ruin." He stepped back into the rain, retreating, not defeated, but calculating. His shadow stretched long in the stormlight. "Enjoy your little rebellion, boy. When I return, I won't just take the parchment. I'll take everything." He vanished into the night, his surviving men dragging themselves after him. The storm swallowed their retreat. Kevin collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, hands shaking so violently the parchment nearly tore in his grip. His vision blurred, blood and rain indistinguishable on his skin. The stranger sank into a chair, clutching his wound, breath ragged. "You did it," he rasped. "You finally stood up." Kevin stared at the parchment, his grandfather's words seared into his mind. Not papers, bloodline. The truth was bigger than money, bigger than property, something Victor was willing to kill for. He looked up, determination cutting through the fear. Then we find it, all of it, and we end him. The stranger's eyes narrowed, a flicker of pride beneath the pain. Then you'd better be ready to learn what Robert left behind. Because it wasn't just wealth, Kevin, it was power, real power. And if you claim it, the world will never be the same. Lightning split the sky, the storm outside raging harder than ever. But inside Kevin, a storm had already begun, one far more dangerous. Victor retreats into the night, but his threat lingers. Kevin, bloodied and changed by his first kill, now holds a parchment that promises power beyond inheritance and the promise of a war that will consume everything. The storm outside eased to a cold drizzle, but inside the cabin the air was heavy, thick with smoke and the stench of blood. Kevin sat at the table, trembling hands smoothing the parchment flat despite the stains and torn edges. His grandfather's handwriting stared back at him, the words burned into his mind. Not in the papers, but in the bloodline. The stranger leaned heavily against the wall, his wound bound with torn cloth, face pale but eyes sharp. Robert wasn't just a wealthy man, he said quietly. He built an empire that spanned governments, corporations, entire markets. And he never trusted Victor with it. He knew greed without loyalty destroys everything. Kevin swallowed hard, his chest tight. Then why me? The stranger's gaze cut into him. Because you were the only one who gave him something money couldn't buy, respect. He didn't leave you his fortune. He left you his legacy. That parchment is the key. Kevin's eyes traced the faint ink, the strange markings in the margins he hadn't noticed before. They weren't just words, they were coordinates. His pulse quickened. This point somewhere. The stranger nodded once. A vault. Robert hid the rest before Victor could touch it. Not just money, documents, secrets, leverage that could bring down anyone who stood in his way. Kevin's hands shook as he traced the lines. The thought of standing in the same shadows his grandfather once walked made his stomach knot. If this is real, then Victor can never find it. The stranger's jaw tightened, which means we have to move before he does. Meanwhile, across the city, Victor stood in the glass walls of his penthouse, lightning reflecting in his eyes. The remains of soaked suits and bloodied guards lay silent behind him, dismissed like broken tools. His phone glowed in his hand as he dialed, voice calm, controlled. "Activate the network," he said. "No limits, no rules. My son thinks he can challenge me. I want every street, every corner, every man on my payroll hunting him. I want him crushed before dawn." The voice on the other end hesitated. "Sir, unleashing the network will—" Victor's tone dropped to ice. "Do it." The line went dead. He poured himself a drink, watching the storm fade over the skyline. A slow smile curled his lips. "Let him run. Let him bleed. In the end, he'll crawl back to me." Back in the cabin, Kevin's exhaustion threatened to drag him under, but adrenaline kept him upright. He folded the parchment carefully, tucking it into his jacket. The stranger's voice was weaker now. "If you're going to do this, you need to understand what it means. Robert's enemies didn't die with him. They're still out there, men who would burn the world for what he built. And Victor is only the beginning." Kevin's eyes hardened. "Then I'll face them. All of them." The stranger studied him for a long moment, then gave a faint, pained smile. "Robert was right. You're not your father." Before Kevin could reply, headlights flared through the cracks in the cabin walls. Engines rumbled outside, dozens. Kevin froze, breath catching. The stranger's expression darkened. "The network. He's unleashed it." The sound grew louder, doors slamming, boots crunching gravel, voices barking orders. Shadows swarmed around the cabin, flashlights cutting through the trees like knives. Kevin's chest pounded, his grip tightening on the parchment. He turned to the stranger. We can't stay. We have to move, now. The stranger pushed himself upright, grimacing against the pain. He grabbed a shotgun propped against the wall, cocked it with a grim resolve. Then let's make sure they regret coming here. The cabin walls rattled as men surrounded it, their rifles aimed, their voices echoing through the storm. "Kevin Hale!" one shouted. "Step outside, now. Your father wants you alive." "He didn't say the same for your friend." Kevin's fist clenched. He wasn't going back. Not now, not ever. He looked at the stranger, fire burning in his eyes. "Then we don't step outside." The stranger's lips curled into a sharp grin despite the pain. "That's Robert's blood talking." The first window shattered. Gunfire erupted, splinters spraying across the room. Kevin dropped low, clutching the parchment as the cabin transformed into a battlefield once again. Surrounded by Victor's entire network, Kevin and the wounded stranger brace inside the collapsing cabin. The parchment their only weapon and target. The cabin shook with every shot. Wooden beams splintering, lanterns crashing to the floor. Shadows darted across the walls as Victor's men encircled the building, their rifles spitting fire into the storm. Kevin crouched low, parchment pressed against his chest, breath ragged. The stranger fired back through the shattered window, every blast of the shotgun rattling the fragile walls. His movements were slower now, blood loss carving the strength from him, but his eyes burned with the same defiance as ever. "Move, Kevin!" he shouted. "Keep low to the back." Kevin crawled across broken glass, the folder and parchment digging into his ribs. The back door burst open before he reached it, a man in black charging through with a blade raised. Kevin reacted on instinct, hurling himself forward, slamming the man against the wall. They struggled, steel flashing in the flickering light, until Kevin drove his knee up and grabbed the dropped knife. He plunged it forward, the man collapsing in silence. Kevin stood over the body, shaking, the knife trembling in his hand. The weight of killing no longer froze him. It forged him. The stranger staggered beside him, voice raw. "Robert wanted you hardened, not broken. Don't let the blood define you. Make it mean something." Before Kevin could respond, the front wall collapsed inward, torn apart by a truck ramming straight through. Soldiers flooded the opening, their boots pounding across the cabin floor. Smoke and dust blinded everything. Through the chaos, a familiar voice rose, calm, cruel, undeniable. "Enough of this game." Victor stepped through the wreckage, immaculate even in the storm. His eyes locked on Kevin, sharp as razors. Behind him, men fanned out, rifles aimed, waiting for the command. Kevin lifted the parchment high, his voice trembling but fierce. "This belongs to me, not you." Victor's smile was ice. "It belongs to whoever has the power to keep it. And that's not you." He gestured. Two men surged forward. Kevin fought wildly, blade flashing, striking one across the face before the other slammed him to the ground. The parchment slipped from his grip, sliding across the floor toward Victor's polished shoes. Victor bent down, lifting it delicately, brushing the dust from its surface. His smile widened as he scanned the handwriting. "So this is what you've bled for. Your grandfather's little riddle." He looked at Kevin, pinned beneath the soldier's knee, rage and defiance burning in his eyes. "And you thought you could outplay me with this?" The stranger, barely standing, raised his shotgun one last time. "He doesn't need to outplay you. He just needs to survive you." The blast echoed like thunder. Victor's umbrella exploded in splinters, the parchment ripped from his hand. He staggered back, coat torn, face carved with sudden fury. His men opened fire, shredding the cabin with lead. The stranger took the storm full in the chest, body thrown against the wall. Kevin screamed, fury ripping from his throat. He threw himself forward, grabbing the parchment as bullets tore into the floor around him. Pain seared his shoulder, but he held on, rolling behind the wreckage of the truck. Victor's voice thundered above the chaos. "You are nothing, Kevin. Nothing but a child playing in a war you don't understand." Kevin's eyes burned with something new, clarity. He pulled himself up, blood soaking his jacket, parchment clutched tight. His voice cut through the storm. "I'm Robert Hale's blood, and I'm the end of you." He hurled the parchment into the flames, licking across the cabin floor. Fire roared, devouring ink, swallowing legacy. Victor's eyes widened, disbelief breaking through his control. "No!" Kevin seized the moment, rushing forward with every ounce of strength left. He slammed into Victor, driving him through the broken wall, both of them crashing into the mud outside. The storm poured over them as they grappled, fists and fury clashing. Victor's strength was monstrous, every strike fueled by years of unchecked power. But Kevin didn't yield. Blow after blow, his knuckles split. His vision blurred, but rage and legacy drove him harder. The stranger's last words echoed in his head. "Make it mean something." With a final roar, Kevin drove his father's face into the mud, holding him down as rain hammered them both. Victor thrashed, cursed, clawed, but Kevin didn't let go. Not until the fight bled from him, not until silence replaced fury. Victor lay still. Kevin collapsed back, gasping, soaked in blood and rain. Around him, the remaining soldiers froze, uncertain, their leader broken in the dirt. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Some fled. Others simply vanished into the storm. The network crumbled without its king. Kevin dragged himself to the wreckage of the cabin. The stranger lay motionless, eyes staring at nothing. Kevin knelt beside him, tears mixing with the rain. "I'll make it mean something," he whispered. "I promise." When dawn broke, the storm was gone. Smoke rose from the ruins of the cabin, the parchment nothing but ashes. Kevin stood alone on the muddy hill, bloodied but unbroken. The empire no longer in Victor's grasp. The fortune, the secrets, the power, it all meant nothing without honor. And that was what Robert left him. Not wealth, not property, but the strength to fight and to win. Kevin turned toward the horizon, a new fire in his chest. His father was gone. His grandfather's shadow still lingered. But the future was his. The war was over. Or so he thought. As Kevin walked away, the ashes of the parchment scattered in the wind. But among them, untouched by flame, a single fragment remained, bearing one final line in Robert's handwriting. "The bloodline does not end with you.